So it's great to have an opportunity to speak with everybody at the Survey Forum. I apologize I'm not able to be there in person today. I'm talking to you from lovely Huntsville, Alabama, where I've been at Marshall Space Flight Center for the last day and a half. So, but just great to have the opportunity to speak with you all. Hopefully Ashton's going to get those slides up. While we're waiting, I'll just note how important the lunar science is that we're doing and the importance of lunar science to the agency. It's wonderful to hear Jim talk about the importance of that lunar science and that's such a prime motivator for the human exploration going into the future. We're happy to be a partner in that work. We're delighted that we have such a great partnership with ESDMD, with Jim at the directorate level, and then the working relationship they have, of course, with Jake Bleacher, working closely with Sarah Noble and others within SMD, and just really happy to have this great partnership. If we can go to the next slide, please. I just wanted to chat a little bit. There's so much going on at the moon. I know that Sarah talked to you yesterday in a lot of detail, but I just want to share my excitement of all the great lunar activity. You can see on this chart here, I don't know if you've seen this one before, but it shows two spirals spiraling out. The inner spiral is showing orbital missions at the moon, and the outer spiral showing surface missions. This combines both the missions that are being run out of ESDMD on the human side, as well as the science missions being run out of SMD. And if you can go to the next time step, I've actually underlined those missions that are the science missions. And you can see we're making I think a significant contribution towards Artemis and towards the lunar science as part of the agency's priorities. And you can see on here all of the CLIPS payloads that are now currently on the manifest and being planned. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in a couple seconds. I did want to just mention on here, of course, our largest CLIPS mission delivery is going to be Viper. And I know you, if you haven't already heard, you're going to hear, I'm sure, from Dan Andrews about status on Viper. The rover itself is coming along very well. As you know, of course, the launch has been pushed out a year so that we can get increased confidence in the Peregrine lander, get some additional testing on the engines for the descent engines, and so I think that's hopefully giving us higher confidence in the success of that mission, and we're looking forward to that the success of Viper with the launch in 2024. If we can go on to the next slide. Again, I know that Sarah talked to you about all of these details yesterday, but I wanted to just kind of give you my perspective. When I sit back and look at all of the things that we're doing within SMD, combined efforts between Planetary Science Division and the Exploration System Science Integration Office, it's amazing to me just how far we've come over the last couple of years. I think back to when LDEP, the Lunar Discovery Exploration Program, first started getting funding in 2019. And then look where we are today after only 4 years. It kind of blows my mind just how much we're doing here. Starting with, of course, continued operations of Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, doing fantastic work, just continuing to go like the Energizer Bunny around the moon. Being joined now, of course, by the Korean Pathfinder Lunar Orbiter, KPLO, carrying the NASA-contributed shadow cam provided by Mark Robinson. I hope some of you have seen some of the amazing images coming out of shadow cam, being able to see into the darkest corners of those permanently shadowed craters. Amazing new data that, see things we've never seen before. I already mentioned Viper, making great progress. And then the CLIPS program with with the PRISM calls. Excited about the most recent PRISM announcement, which just came out earlier this week, I believe. Very excited about that payload being led by Scott Anderson. Very good, great, exciting science that's going to be done. I think this is the first one where the PI actually picked the landing site. So this is a pretty cool advance, I think, in the CLIPS program. Thinking about Artemis, and Jim talked a lot about what we're doing and how we're going to get to where we want to be with the science that we can achieve with Artemis. And on the SMD side, we've made, I think, tremendous progress in this area. We're participating in the astronaut training for the Artemis II astronauts. While they're not landing on the surface, they're going to swing around the moon, and we want to be engaged and involved with them. They're going to, of course, be out in the public eye and want to be able to communicate to the public the exciting science that we can do at the moon. And so we're actively engaged with Artemis II astronauts. We've received proposals for the geology team that's going to support the Artemis III team. Really excited about that. We're evaluating those and going to be selecting the cool science and the team that's going to support the astronauts on the surface of the moon. I heard Jim mention also the Artemis III payload solicitation, which has been released, and we're expecting to release soon the Artemis IV payload call. So we're thinking ahead and trying to start getting those instruments in the pipeline, both the handheld instruments, deployable instruments. As you can see, we're also going to be releasing a solicitation for the Lunar Terrain Vehicle instruments. I think just the magnitude of what we're going to be able to do and bring to the surface of the moon is going to be unprecedented as we start to look forward to the various Artemis landings. Landing science community workshops have been conducted. We're participating in the Jet 5 Artemis III analog science activities, of course, preparing, making sure we're working through all of the logistics of how we're going to do the surface operations once we land on the moon, and active science participation in those activities is critical. Bringing in the expertise from our lunar science community and our geology communities from planetary science is incredibly valuable. And then Jim also mentioned, of course, the project scientists being named for the Artemis III and Artemis IV missions. In fact, also for Artemis II. So we're really excited about having that kind of visibility of science on those missions. That's going to integrate the science that's going to be conducted, and then actually serve as that kind of key focal point for coordinating the science on those various missions. Great progress on ANGSA 2. Really excited about that, making sure we get the most out of the Apollo samples as we possibly can. I'm really glad that we've been able to do that. And then, of course, really excited with the SurveyCan-4 selections that have just been made. I'm hopeful that those teams are represented in the room today or online, that we continue the great partnership with ESDMD with joint selection of the survey teams. That's the last two calls. We've been able to do that together, and really pleased with the continued partnership in that area. Let's see, the new lunar strategy. I'm sure that Sarah spoke about that in some detail yesterday, but I just wanted to give you from my perspective that is coming along very well. There, of course, have taken information from all of that the community has provided, all of those various documents over the last many years that provide the key priorities for what science needs to be done at the moon, and trying to think through the various architectures and mechanisms that we have available to us within SMD and across the board, partnering with Artemis. And what's our strategy there? And of course, they're working on that and going to be able to release a draft in the coming months. It will be a draft. It will be open for community comment, for people to provide feedback, and we'll iterate and build the strongest strategy that we can for achieving the science at the moon. And then you probably heard also about Endurance A. This was, of course, the priority mission that was recommended in the decadal survey to be conducted at the moon. It would be a concept that tries to bring together the the capabilities of a robotic mission combined with the capabilities of having human explorers on the surface of the moon, and to maximize the science return that we can get by using both robotic and human explorers. Very interesting concept included in the decadal survey. There are some different modalities that could be considered. And so Joel Kearns and the SEO office are off running a study to try and look at some of those modalities. You may have heard there are some challenges in the overall budget for NASA in the coming year, not just for NASA, actually across the entire US government, multiple agencies. So we'll have to see kind of how all of that plays out, but we absolutely want to be ready to execute on a mission such as that when the time is right. So if I can go on to the next slide, please. I just want to give one more quick shout out for the CLPS missions. These missions started off, as a high-risk venture. We recognize that this is not easy. It is very difficult to land on the moon. We've seen that demonstrated, sadly, many times over the last few years with others that have tried to land on the moon. So we know and we recognize this is a high-risk approach. But it's something that's really important to build the commercial capability to allow for more frequent access to the moon, access to the surface of the moon. And we're seeing that growth. We're seeing the growth of the capabilities with these commercial partners. And just to set the expectations that it is possible that, we may have a reasonably high failure rate, but I don't actually see any of these. If we don't land softly, it's not necessarily a failure. We will learn. We will continue to learn. That's the whole point of having multiple CLPS missions on the manifest. We've got, I believe, 9 on the manifest now, and we want to just make sure we keep learning, and we're going to build that capability. That's the point of the program. And I'm really excited that we could have a couple of those launches, our first CLPS launches this year. The Astrobotic 1 mission 1, the lander's ready to go. We are, at this point, looking to the United Launch Alliance and their new Vulcan rocket. Of course, Astrobotic 1 is going to fly on the maiden voyage of Vulcan. And so I know great progress is being made on the Vulcan Centaur, and we expect that launch to happen and hopefully later this year. Intuitive Machines with their first launch, the Nova C. That one also coming along, having some challenges, but moving along. We're very hopeful that we'll get an Intuitive Machines launch this year, and perhaps even the second Intuitive Machines launch with the Prime 1, which is, in addition to bringing some technology demonstrations to the surface of the moon, will also be carrying along the Lunar Trailblazer Simplex mission as a rideshare. And I think with that, if you can go on, I think that was my last slide. And I'm absolutely happy to take questions along with Jim. Thank you very much.